Everyone, and welcome to this expanded universe discussion stream. I'm Callum Johns, and it's an honor to have Matt Wilkins as a guest here. But you want to introduce yourself, and Evan and Alex, Edward as well.
I'll be third. Matt, you can go on ahead since you're the special guest.
Oh, I'm the special guest. Hi, I'm the special guest. I'm Matt Wilkins. I read a few e-books, and I hang out with the block.
I'm HolocronKeeperEvan. Not as big as Callum. Definitely not as big as Matt. Maybe the same as Ed down there, but that's just me.
Ed,
I'm the history buff. I'm the history buff with a lot of knowledge for history and love for it. I've been an EU fan since 2014.
And there's a fun fact here. Edward and I have been on another podcast before.
Yeah.
Which podcast was it?
We used to be on a podcast called Minox Nest.
Minox Nest, yeah.
Way back in the day.
Really?
Yep.
Good old times. Good old times.
Yep.
That's cool. So people already know each other, and really thankful that you came on because it's great to finally talk to you and proper discussion and everything.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for putting up with all my little girls. Y'all missed the pre-show, ladies and gentlemen. I had my twins with one of the twins with me. I may have another one later on, but
if you get the tag of the cute baby and you two people will be searching that up. So I thought we'd start with how we got into the EU for each of us, and why is the EU such a big thing for you and your interests?
Okay. Do you want to start with me?
Yeah, we might as well, since yours probably starts before all of us.
Sure. I
am going to grab something.
Back when the world was in black and white, as Evan's indicating. I've told this story. I have a video about it, but my dad's secretary was a big Star Trek fan. We used to watch Star Trek episodes together. For my birthday, 13th birthday, she wanted to buy me a Star Trek book. Couldn't find one. Instead, got me Heir to the Empire, the paperback. And I thanked her for it, and then I shelved it and didn't read it till later on that summer. And then after that, I was hooked. Started buying everything I could, and everything and anything. And that's it's what's made me a Star Wars fan. You know, I always loved the movies growing up, but the books just solidified me as a Star Wars fan. If it hadn't been for the books, I would have owned the movies on DVD, but I wouldn't watch them that much. I mean, I just wouldn't be that big of a fan without the expanded universe. That's why when they said they were discontinuing it, I was like, well, I don't. Everyone thought it was so hard that, well, you love Star Wars. Yeah, I love this. I love this story. That's why I'm a Star Wars fan. So that's my story.
Right. Cal.
Yeah.
Since Ed will probably be the last, we might as well go in chronological order. You're probably next on the line, or are you?
I can't remember the years, so.
Wait, hold on. Before or after Revenge of the Sith?
I think it was around the same time.
Okay, me and you are about the same there. But you're older. Go on ahead.
Oh, I'm the host. I guess I can go next. Yeah, I got into the EU. I loved seeing the movies. I saw the prequels, and I believe my parents showed me the original trilogy. So that's what I started looking at more information about Star Wars, because when you just watch the movies, you want to find out all the bits and pieces of what went on and everything. And so a lot of my earlier life was looking up the stuff on Wikipedia and learning the information there, because I didn't have money for all the books and everything. But some of the earliest books I actually got into were the Scholastic Junior novelizations of the movies, which are interesting. And I'd ordered them because I thought that I'd get the full novelizations, the thicker ones, but then they were the junior novels. I was disappointed at the time, but okay, that happens. And then I got the Jedi Academy trilogy at some point. I forget exactly, but at some point I read them and I loved that. And then it just sparked off my interest in reading the books and the comics and everything. It's been an awesome journey. And I started chronologically in about 2016, I think, going through everything. So it's been awesome. So make sure I get all the information.
So how I was introduced to the EU, essentially, probably after I saw the original trilogy. This would have been around the time of the micro series. Micro series might have been my introduction to the larger Star Wars, but as a kid, I used to go to the library a lot. So as a kid, you don't go for the novels and I wasn't a big reader. So I'm more of a visual guy. So my library had essentially this, but the older edition of it. And this is what really got me hooked.
Wow.
This and the original Star Wars Encyclopedia. But the things in here, like I learned a lot from this, especially this really intrigued me as a kid, was the Empire Reborn, this whole story arc.
Yeah, the Dark Empire comics are cool.
Right. That also interested me, and the Thrawn stuff. So this is what really brought me into that larger world. And then my first novelization would have been 501st Imperial Commando, technically. But I remember we had a Walden Books, which is, I don't know if, Matt, do you remember Walden Books? It was owned by Borders in the States.
Oh, okay, yes, Walden Books. Yeah, I used to get all my books there back in the day.
Yeah, we had one in my town in the mall, which is no longer a thing. So
Right.
they had a whole Star Wars section. I remember when the 20th anniversary of Heir to the Empire came out in the hardbacks. And just kind of vague memories of that stuff. But really what my first real purchase for an EU novel was the Thrawn trilogy. I got it in Orlando during Star Wars Celebration in 2017, I believe. So that was my first kind of step. But for years, I'd just been referencing Wikipedia and watching the Clone Wars TV shows and just being a part of that. And, my knowledge has been expanded through that. And that's the way that it goes. And I've assembled this over the last 3 years. And I'm quite proud to still be an EU fan.
Yes.
So.
All right, so my experience with the EU is kind of unique. How I became an EU fan was how I became a Star Wars fan. I didn't know nothing about Star Wars, nothing at all. I was inside the box and I didn't know anything what else was out there, anything about Star Wars. One time I went to GameStop. My mom asked me if I could pick up any game. So I found one game which was called Star Wars Clone Wars. Star Wars The Clone Wars, the 2002 tank game.
I have that.
And I played it. That's the first time I ever got exposed to like the lore of Star Wars. And as a kid, that freaked me out. I was just bizarre. And then at the time when I was playing that game, they mentioned Ule Keldroma. He shows up. I'm like, I bet this guy is from the movie or something like that. Was what I was thinking. So, and then by that point, that's when the micro series came out, and I kind of got exposed to it. And then finally, I started watching the movies. It's kind of like this first phase was just getting exposed to, I guess, video games and visuals itself. And then around the time when the Clone Wars 2008 series came out, that's when I became kind of more of a half fan of Star Wars. And at that point, I was playing all the video games, playing all the big games out there, like Knights of the Republic 1 and Battlefront. And then 2013, I found out they made a book about Revan, so I wanted to check it out. I got it, read it. I was kind of mixed about it, but I liked the book. And when this whole thing with the whole EU getting discontinued, I thought this was a perfect opportunity for me to see what was lost because of this. And by that point, I read Rectum Prime. First time ever. I love that book. And then Matt suggested me to go read the Thrawn trilogy, which I did. And then I just kind of just went back and forth between eras since 2014 to 2016. That's those 3 years I've been reading a lot of Star Wars books. But then I kind of took a break from it. And I mean, I've decided I want to get back into the EU. I've just been really busy. But it pretty much just comes out to 3 phases. Kind of like video games, visuals were one. And then kind of like the secondary to the movies and shows. And then I guess reading material is how I became a fan.
That's awesome. It's really interesting that introduction with video games because it's usually people are EU fans from reading the books first, looking at extra bits and pieces.
Right. And I think a lot from, you say a lot comes from the books and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I can agree with that, and a lot of the older fans are, but, you have to think 2005, like 2004 onwards, people have grown up, especially with the TV series being their first introduction into video games because of the whole prequel boom and subsequent, thing there. So.
Yeah, definitely. And the interesting thing to note is I didn't watch the 2008 Clone Wars series until much later. Because, I mean, there'd be an episode on TV or something, but then I'd sort of be like, I want to watch it from the start. And then it never happened. They
did reruns very consistently.
Is that on paid TV?
It was on Cartoon Network, but I don't know what paid TV is.
We had free TV, so fun.
And then, you know what? When the Clone Wars came in, I was a big fan, and then by the time midway through season 2, that's when I kind of stopped, and then I didn't know anything was going on until by the time when I finally got back into it, they were like on season 6 already, and I was like, what did I miss so long?
You missed a good series, in my personal opinion.
And I just rewatched it and. I watched it and got through it all.
So I think we can go into something that's interested me looking at my timeline, which I'll drop a link to that in the description below, is looking at the RPG magazines in my Expanded Universe timeline. It's really interesting to try and work out the continuity of them and how they fit in. Because the short stories are referenced by everything else. They're sea canon, obviously, but the actual storylines that you play through yourselves, I've been wondering about, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to ask you, Matt, about those.
The RPGs?
Yeah.
Okay. I do have a full collection of the West End games, the Wizard of the Coast, and all up to Fantasy Flight when they officially switched over. A nice, actually, video camera will allow, right over there.
Nice.
Nice big set there. Some of those are more expensive than others, but the cream of the crop there is West End Games. West End Games carried the torch when no one cared about Star Wars. They got the rights for relatively cheap, if I recall, and they were making role-playing games. Now, George was actually reading it. He was still enjoying Star Wars, even though everyone else had moved on. And so West End Games was still coming out with content. And for a while, they were the only ones. No one cared in the, late 80s or such, early 90s. No one was really caring about Star Wars anymore. In fact, I remember not even knowing West End Games even existed until like the mid 90s. I didn't even know what it was until I saw what was it? It was either an adventure journal or one of their little magazine adventure things. It's like, what is this? And I never heard of them before. But they have a bigger impact than even I knew going into the expanded universe, because a lot of the writers, Troy Denning, Pablo Hidalgo, a few others, grew up either writing for West End Games, or they were playing those games and they wanted to include those adventures or those alien species or even some characters into the expanded universe. And you see a lot. In fact, the biggest one, the biggest series that has the most West End Games references is Fate of the Jedi. And that's because of Troy Denning. You can obviously tell. Troy Denning is sewing as many. It's like when they got to Fate of the Jedi, they ran out of things they could connect to. They connected to books, the comic books. They said, what else can we connect to? Hey, because they'd already tied in Marvel comic books. And they're like, what else can we do? Oh, you know what? Let's tie in more of the West End Games. So Troy Denning was taking adventures that you would play in the regular series and then continuing those adventures in the novels. For instance, a great example, the Darkstrider campaign. There's I think it's the Darkstrider campaign. You're going on a mission to find the Codex. What is the Codex? We don't know. We just know that we need that, and we're going to deliver that to Mon Mothma or send it her way. Well, later on, what happens? Luke needs the Codex. That these rebel agents, it doesn't say who, it just says rebel agents retrieved years ago. And that was you when you played the adventure. And that was so smart. And I can only imagine people who grew up playing West End Games who were reading these books going, oh, that was me. In a way, I hate the word headcanon, but this is totally appropriate here where you say, yeah, I played that adventure. It was my Wookiee pilot or, and someone's, Ewok co-pilot who went on the adventure to do that. I can just imagine what that would have been like. Now, to be honest, I've never played the West End Games material. I had a dungeon master we were going to set something up later on this year, but he moved away. But he grew up playing the West End Game stuff, and he never had this collection. He said, Matt, I only had the base book. He said, I didn't have all this stuff. He said, this is incredible. I would have died to have all this. I was like, well, maybe we ought to play sometime. So
and he moves away.
And he moves away. He moves away. Well, it was for a woman, so.
Oh, that'll get you every time.
I can't. He said when he comes in around the holidays, he wouldn't mind getting together and doing an adventure one night, and maybe we still will. But I read those things, and first off, let me ask you a question. Has anyone read some of the West End Game stuff?
I actually got this recently, which was Shantipole, and then at Celebration, I got the I believe it was 30th anniversary, the
regular, yeah. Now,
which is really nice. And,
oh no, that reprint, it was the reprint they did.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, really nice. The thing is, West End Games had such an imagination, and they were chock full of creativity that George, on purpose, used. I mean, if you looked at the Dave Filoni Clone Wars on the behind the scenes DVDs,
yeah,
Filoni even says where they got the idea of the look for a Gundark. George gave him West End Games material. Said, "Here's what a Gundark looks like."
Right, and
the comics, yeah.
And this would be something to discuss later on because, I mean, a lot of the EU community is either in denial about how the EU fits into TCW, and that they were just going off its own thing.
Well, you have a lot of people who hate the Clone Wars, and that's fine. Like I said, I'm 50-50 on it. There's half of it I love, half of it I hate. That's how I feel. I know back in the day I used to mock Filoni. I don't really like him that much, but his series was, for me, it was okay. It was an okay series. It wasn't. Yeah. Go ahead.
Aaron, you and me actually talked about this. I mean, since they stopped doing the EU, now it's kind of like fans think that they can interpret in their own way.
Yeah, They think they can dismantle it. In fact, before Lucasfilm was bought out, there was a bunch of us thinking, man, can we just? They were asking Leland Chee, can we just cut this out to secondary canon? You know, it was T canon, but we were like, can we just move this away? And he said, don't worry, guys, we'll come up with a fix. And actually, Fantasy Flight came up with a fix right before they switched over to the new canon stuff. If you know, Filoni's Clone Wars always begins with a newsreel, right? Right. From the Republic. Well, what the Fantasy Flight book, I think it's Force and Destiny.
It is. I've actually searched for that, and it's, at least from how I've read it, it's a short 2-page paragraph, right? 2 paragraph where a guy says, "I'm watching this newsreel, and they're reporting things wrong, and I don't know why, because they're getting small details wrong." And they say, "Is this something they're doing to subvert or change the story?" And I was going, "Wait a minute, is he saying that the newsreels where they conflict with the expanded universe would be, you know, Republic propaganda?" And, right. But remember, in that he was saying, "But I don't understand why they made some of these changes. It was weird." No. And so if you do that, then you don't have. It was an easy way to explain away the contradictions with the Clone Wars. Now, I actually went to Gen Con that year, and a friend of mine also went with me as my backup, and we went and talked to Fantasy Flight, and I talked about that. I said, are you trying to portray that the Clone Wars was Republic propaganda, and that's why it didn't fit with the rest of the books and comic books? And he just looked at me, smiled, and said, you could definitely interpret it that way. Yeah, I asked a similar question to them when I went to their booth, because I go to their booth at Celebration. I asked him that question, and he was like very unsure of the answer, but he was like leaning towards, you know, however you interpret it.
Yeah, I mean, whoever wrote it, they're not going to say. Right. And then Fantasy Flight people, not all of them are into the Star Wars role-playing games. So they honestly just don't know. This had just come out. It was still fresh. Now these days they may not even know what you're referring to, but somebody within Fantasy Flight was a fan of the expanded universe and said, I'm gonna throw this in there. This will smooth everything over. And it did. It was a really smart move by whoever did it. I asked, and when I asked him, he said several people contribute to those, you know, big role-playing books. So they couldn't tell me who wrote it.
Actually, Fantasy Flight actually just recently released 2 Clone Wars supplements for their role-playing game. I looked through those before the stream. I did probably about 2 hours ago, and I was like noticing stuff in there, and it's they have legend stuff in there. They mentioned Sabaroth Squadron, Muzzle, the clone trooper of I forget what it was called, the Sutton Lance. They mentioned stuff, and then I've noticed like they tried to smooth over continuity, such as the why Dangar has essentially the episode, like the snowtrooper armor plate,
right?
And it's because it was an armor package. It was called the HT-77 Cold Assault armor. Okay. So it's a way of smoothing it over, I think, as well.
That's
definitely a possibility. I mean, you know, but it's so interesting, the detail and the knowledge that goes into that and the striving. And I'll be honest, Fantasy Flight was doing a great job. The only reason I stopped it is when they did that announcement in Force and Destiny that said, hey guys, going forward, there's legends and there's new canon.
Yeah, that's why I place the Fantasy Flight stuff mostly in its own kind of but its own continuity.
Well, they kept operating in the expanded universe because the new canon had nothing they could go into and explore.
No, it's all
they still use Legends stuff because Legends is so huge and there's so much they can pull from.
And people still like it. So.
Yeah, and people still like it. And Fantasy Flight does a decent job. In fact, they're West End Games is the best. Fantasy Flight does a good effort. They've had some very interesting. They don't do stories, but they have interesting scenarios they can set you up on. Like I thought, colonizing planets within the Star Wars universe. How would that work? That's interesting. I never thought about that. And they have other great ideas from what was that? Empire? Edge of the Empire.
Edge of the Empire.
It was either Edge of the Empire, Age of the Rebellion. One of the two. They can't. Well, both of them had some very interesting ideas. The worst one, and this is even people who were in RPG say this too, was Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, and by the way, Wizards of the Coast got the rights in 1999 when Episode 1 was coming up. Right. It really sucked for West End Games. They filed for bankruptcy, not because West End Games was going bankrupt, but because he had another, I believe it was a shoe company that was draining all his money, and it bankrupt all because he put West End Games up, to the bank, and they went belly up and pulled all of his other business in there. He pleaded with Lucasfilm to let him keep the rights, but Lucasfilm was ready to get rid of him and sell it for more money because their contract with West End Games, they were making pennies on the dollar. Yeah. Where Wizards of the Coast, of course, they had all the money and they're willing to pay way more.
However, I do like West End Games D20 system. I'm a big fan.
Everyone loves their system too. No one really liked the system for Wizards of the Coast. No one really understood how it went. There's a lot of questions. The rules weren't laid out properly, and the imagination is stifled at best. They did a very pitiful job using their imagination, and this is in the heyday of Star Wars, right? Because we have the prequels coming out. I mean, there's tons of books. West End Games had nothing going on. Wizards of the Coast should be hopping on this and explaining this, explaining that, explaining this. They had pretty hardback books, but to be honest, they're not all worthless. There's some decent stuff in there, but compared to what Fantasy Flight took over, Fantasy Flight is a step up in the very right direction. And no one touches West End Games still today.
I agree with the the storyline kind of West End Games. I don't know, Wizards Saga Edition really cleared up a lot of stuff over the last 2 editions, the revised and everything. But again, I don't have a lot of West End Games to compare it to. But judging by what I have, I also have the Dark Empire source book. West End Games, they had the story there. But I also feel as though Wizards, it gave you a lot of stuff, though. It's more of a sandbox experience where you build an adventure, but
they put out the area and the statistics of certain things, but they weren't creative enough to go farther than that. Like Fantasy Flight, going outside the box and thinking things. Don't worry about the war. Let's look outside the war. How are people's lives being impacted by this? How is the regular scout able to do his work? That's something that West End Games explored one time. You're a scout in the game. You're plotting out the unknown regions. There's obviously explorers who are
was that the Cathal Outback? I believe. I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, the Cathal Outback has scouts, but there's one. I think it's called Scouting and whatever. But the thing is, though, it's setting you up on how you can. You're a guy. You're in a ship. You have to repair it. It falls apart. There's nowhere to stop because you're out in the wilderness. You may run across some technologically inclined planets here and there, and of course the adventures will tell you. But the whole scenario, I was there going, this makes sense. There is someone out there who is searching through the, or the core, who's going deeper into the core, or who's going out into the unknown regions. That to me, I was like, wow, I would actually want to hear this story, this guy's story, this group of people, their story. What were their adventures when they went exploring? There's West End Games just said, we don't need the main storyline to come up with great ideas that take place within this universe. Fantasy Flight is doing the same thing. They've actually done a lot, well, not a lot more, but they've done a few things from Edge of the Empire and Age of the Rebellion that I've never thought of before. One was someone's rise through the Republic, through the Senate.
Right.
You're an aide and you're trying to get up, and there's political intrigue, there's scandals, there's things you have to report, there's paperwork you have to file, you have to get you get to know other aides. It's who you know. It's building your way up. And I was like, That's interesting. It all takes place. You don't need to have Jedi. It's okay to have Jedi. Everyone wants to be a Jedi.
Right.
It was the smaller people and those stories and that perception of how would so-and-so look at this. I don't know. Does anyone here, are y'all big comic book fans?
I collect, I'm more than Cal.
There was a comic book.
Getting into the Star Wars ones more, but I'm not really as big into other comic books.
Okay.
So you can talk about with me.
There was a comic book. It wasn't a Star Wars book. That's why I'm asking. It was called Astro City. Astro City is painted by Alex Ross. It's beautiful. Well worth your time.
Okay. I've met Alex Ross.
It's a city full of superheroes, but you don't care about them. You're looking at things from the humans, the regular plain Jane humans perspective. Like when there's if you've read Marvel and DC, there's some, time traveling ending crisis that's about to, it crushes the planet, but they went back and saved the day, right?
You always have to try and raise the stakes in them, yeah.
Well, there's a story in Astro City where this man wakes up one morning and he feels something's wrong, and he keeps there should be someone here, but he lives by himself. He knows that. He's always lived by himself, but he's looking around. There should be something in this room, but it's a storage room, but this is not right. And he can't put his finger on it. Something isn't right. And then suddenly a superhero, a time traveling superhero appears to him and says, "Hey, look, we just got through with the Earth died. We had to go back in time, but we didn't set everything right. You had a wife and kids. Sorry, but we couldn't bring them back."
Oh, boy.
He's been imprinted with the new, here's the new world he's always been a part of. But he said, "You're not part of this world." He said, "Do you want," and he said, "I'll give you the memories, but I can't give you them back." He said, "I've been trying to fix the timeline." So he gave him back the memories, and he killed himself. I mean, it's just dark. But the thing is, though, Astro City was like, what happens to the little people when these big things happen in the superhero world? It was now Marvel tried to copy this with a comic book called Marvels. Not very good, kind of boring. But Alex Ross Astro City does that. Now, this is exactly what West End Games and in a way Fantasy Flight have done as well. They're making us look from outside of the war. It doesn't have to be about the war. It doesn't have to be just about the Empire and the rebellion. There's a bunch of other lives at stake. There's a bunch of other opportunities. There's people working on moisture farms. There's people, doing it. They're clocking in 9 to 5 at their job. What is their job? And can it be adventures? Of course, it's a dangerous galaxy. So they come up with ingenious ways and ideas to make you think outside the box. This could happen. This could happen. Like the settlers on a new planet. Or the scout, exploring wild reaches of the galaxy, or someone going into the depths of Mon Calamari, deep sea adventures.
Cool. Yeah,
I really like the ideas that I've seen them use, and
then you have my friend Joe Bongiorno, who does StarWarsTimeline.net, argue that there is an alternate universe, of course, if you know Other Space from West End Games. And in Other Space, they rip through and get to our reality, and they're trying to destroy everything. On the other side of the rip through reality is nothing, no stars. They've destroyed everything. And they're just these Death Eaters, kind of, and they want to come into our universe. And we stopped them not once, but twice. They made a sequel called Other Space 2. Not as good as Other Space. But the thing is, though, Joe was mentioning, this guy is super smart, but he was mentioning it to me that it could be possible that, and I hate to say this, that Legends is in the alternate universe still going on where this new canon is going on too. And it's possible. Yeah, you see where we're going with this, right?
Have to be on top of the other.
It's possible that Luke wakes up one morning in the new canon and says, "Wait a minute, this isn't right. I had a wife." And then they could automatically bring back Legends. Now, this was his cockamamie idea, which I hate because I don't like mixing canon.
No, I don't either.
Joe absolutely loves it, and he's smart enough to find a way.
I love Joe.
Look at the old Marvel comics. One issue had them going into an alternate dimension as well.
And he pointed that out to me because I was reviewing. I think I've already reviewed that comic book, but we were talking about it, and I said, okay, yes, there is. I'll admit there's alternate dimensions, obviously. But I said, I think they're just far out and they're not mirror universes. And that's what you're asking, Joe. And he's like, no, it could be possible, I guess.
It's a possibility, but without it being written, then it's not.
I mean, to be honest, anything is possible except for time travel. The only thing you can do, you can't go back in time. You can be flung forward in time.
Yeah, you can flung forward, you can fly walk.
Force walk back, but you can't stay and you can't take anything with you, which I like that.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of time traveling stories.
I'm not either. I mean,
bringing time travel into a story always complicates things and never work. You have to unhook your brain to enjoy a time traveling movie.
It has to work.
Yeah, at the same time, the only time traveling movie I've ever enjoyed was Donnie Darko, but that's because he had to follow the time. He could see what was happening, but he couldn't change it. So that I can see, but
I think that all of the deaths in the EU over the years and everything, if they could go back and change things, then they'd be less meaningful as well. Because people would just go, let's go back in time and save Chewie and Anakin Solo and stuff.
Yeah,
that'd be awful. Because I mean, that's what everyone was hoping, that the Jason's was it called Force? What was it called?
It was flow walking.
Flow walking.
Force walking.
And I hated that idea. But they stayed grounded, and Troy Denning told me they had no intention of changing time. That was just a method to go back for him to tempt Tahari. That's how you pronounce her name. That he could bring back. He was at that point the Emperor offering empty promises, is what Troy Denning said. There was no way he could do it. That he did not know. And because I asked him, I said, "Were y'all about to do some time travel?" I don't like that. He's, "Oh no." He said that was just how the Emperor said we can save Padme. The Emperor tempted Darth Vader. It was the same thing here. Jason needed her, so he lied to her. He said, we'll find a way together. No, they won't.
One of my favorite Star Wars comic books, I think came out in 2010, 2012, was Darth Vader and the Lost Command. And I liked that because it explored a lot of, what Vader feels in the months following his reconstruction. And, and it's very interesting. The art, though, I get it's subpar to me. The art.
That's what took me out of the story, but I agree that his recovery and what was going on inside the man was interesting.
Right.
I just wish they dedicate decent artists to some of these comic books.
Exactly. Jander Sema and what's his name? I think it's Jeremy Barlow. I could be wrong.
That sounds right.
Jeremy Barlow sounds right.
Yeah. Jeremy Barlow. Those are my two favorite Star Wars comic artists.
Oh wow, really?
Because they just do the best work. Jeremy Barlow, I'm thinking that is right. I'm gonna just double check.
I think you're right. He's an artist.
Jeremy Barlow, Star Wars.
Hey, who's the guy who drew the early Knights of the Republic comics?
Not Jeremy Barlow. I'm thinking of the person who did Purge. But Jeremy, he did do. Who did Purge? It was Douglas Wheatley. That's who I'm talking about.
Oh, Douglas Wheatley. And because Douglas does really great pencils and coloring, his work is very realistic and it works really well. So again, if they had something like them on that comic, it'd probably be my favorite Star Wars comic. But it's interesting to see Vader in such a broken state and doing what he can emotionally to reason with himself and try to,
Yeah. I love how the Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader plays with that as well and goes into that.
It's interesting duology.
Right.
Of the series.
Which is something I think the EU never really explored a lot about Vader and Padme after the fact, though, and I guess that's what really interests me, is that you actually have a pretty big gap in the EU between 3 and 4, and by the gap I mean it's filled by. I include Tarkin, essentially, the new canon book by James Luceno, because it just fits so well. You have a lot of lost time between 17 BBY and 10 BBY. Like, you have really no stories in between those besides the droid stuff. And it's very interesting to see that. And wish I'd seen Vader or more novels that fleshed that out, his character out and his loss and how he feels about that. But I guess I digress.
Yeah, but you can only go so much into that before there's nothing new to explore.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you could do one solid book or comic book series about it, but after that, you probably have to let it go. I mean, you could mention it here and there, but I don't know if there's that much that you could. I mean, you'd like to see one solid story, is what you're saying,
right? Just like a novel, just something to flesh it out.
Okay, and just like the Lost Command.
Yeah, just you know, something like that. Just kind of like finally acknowledging that she is like gone. Like,
well, now that's how he remains tortured, though.
Yeah. He remains tortured, but at the same time, in the EU, we don't see past a certain point. We see basically a broken Vader, but it's essentially at that point during the OT era, we see him more as he's just given himself to Palpatine, and that's his only purpose at this point in his life. It's like,
I think it leads into Return of the Jedi as well, because if he had let go of Padme completely, then he probably wouldn't have saved Luke.
No, I'm not saying that wouldn't be.
But you have some
factor. I'm saying
by the time Return of the Jedi, I believe. I mean, no one knows, but my theory is that he had buried itself so far down that it took Luke to dig it back up. So to be honest, probably after that one comic book, he shouldn't have brought it up. He shouldn't be living with it anymore. He's done. He thinks it's over, game over. He's just, towing the line. He hates the Emperor, but he also knows there's nothing he can do. So he's just biding his time.
No, he's stuck. He resents the Emperor because he put him in this useless body. He's essentially stripped him of most of his Force abilities because of,
Correct. Yeah.
And it's just, the only reason why he remains is because that's his only link to sanity is through the Emperor, and because he still sees his purpose, and he still sees he can do.
The Emperor's the one giving him his purpose.
Speaking of which, I found these recently, which are book club editions of
nice.
The last 2 novels I needed for. I have the original Star Wars Book Club edition, so
nice.
So I found those recently in pretty good condition.
I just want to touch on going back to the propaganda theory in Force and Destiny. Those paragraphs they probably weren't allowed to specifically say about the Clone Wars in them either being different.
Right.
I'm almost positive, Callum, that was not authorized. I agree.
Yeah. So that's where you interpret it.
I think that because, and this is my theory, if the EU had not been completely striked down, I think we would have gotten a better explanation and a more cohesive timeline versus what Pablo did, which was slap a Band-Aid on it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Leyland Cheat offered some explanations and retcons, but then after that cutoff date, they seemed to just not care about it anymore.
Well, he just started telling people that, hey, guys, we're going to wait till this series is done, and then we'll look into retcon.
Yeah. No, it's still not even finished because they're coming up.
I think that Leland said that, I think, around season 1 or 2, I believe. I saw that on the forum, like from the Wayback Machine.
Oh, yeah. The old Wayback.
Yeah. So I saw that comment before. It's like it'll be all once the series is done, we'll figure something out. But
because after every episode, it seemed like we'd all get on StarWars.com and start sending our questions to Leland G. And he was answering. He answered a few of them. He's like, "Well, this maybe. Well, this could have been this. We don't know if it could have been that. It could have been this." And then finally, he was like, "Oh man, this is going to be I'm in for the long haul to defend Clone Wars. I don't get Lucasfilm don't pay me enough to do this." So that's when he gave that announcement.
I mean, Leland doesn't even answer questions anymore, from what I can see.
No, that's why we need to free the Chi.
Yeah, to me, it's very everyone at Lucasfilm, and I'm going to get conspiratorial here. Everyone at Lucasfilm to me is, I feel like they've got a gag order. It's like, don't reference really the EU. Don't say it was canon. Don't really acknowledge it.
Well, they've definitely got a different attitude on how they treat the fans, which is really weird because the fans used to be, right there on the ground floor with them. They used to talk with them, laugh with them.
Right.
Used to talk to Stan Sansweet, Sue Rastoni, who was head of Bantam or Del Rey back then. Used to talk to all these people one-on-one in the forums all the time. Pablo. Oh gosh, there was
Karen Travis had hers.
Karen Travis got in there.
But
if you can ever find me and Karen Travis's dialogue, that'll be fun.
You don't like Karen Travis, I assume.
No, she called me a Califan.
I'm gonna get personal. I don't like Karen Travis. Her writing style and her essentially like how she treats Jedi and soups up the Mandalorians to be something higher than them all the time.
Yeah.
The case with her is she got popular. She's known for her Mandalorian now. That's her specialty. So she always, and people love that about her. And so she knew where her bread was buttered. And so she started really heavily going to the Mandos, and people were eating it up. Remember, there was a ton of people that absolutely loved those Clone Commander series. In fact, some people even when they used to put their top 10 books, that Clone Commander series was their number 1 or number 2.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the Republic Commander series personally.
You did?
Yeah.
I'd kick you out if I was in charge of this group. I'm kidding. I don't care. Okay, that's totally fine. But the thing is, Callum, you're in the party there because there was a lot of people who liked that. Well, I've already reviewed the books. I don't have to go into what I didn't like. You guys know. But at the same time, I hated how Karen Travis treated the fans.
No, she's got a real attitude towards the fan base.
She had an attitude toward anyone who criticized her work, and it was like a 1.0 version of Chuck Wendig. Not the real deal, but maybe like a beta version.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst she ever did was call you a talent. She'd laugh, scoff at you, send her army after you, and say, "Look at this talent."
No, I was about to say she had a whole dedicated like forum group just to go after people who didn't like her books. And I'm like,
well, she knew people in the forum would defend her. So
exactly.
when I got on there and I started talking about this and this, and then I got attacked. But to be honest, I was probably a little ruder back then.
Well, I mean, we all grow. I mean, definitely. I think
one of the things was I can definitely see your points on where you don't like her because she definitely does soup up the Mandos.
Well, I mean, people love it because they love it. People always wanted to hear about Mando culture. They've always wanted to hear about how Mandos live, and she gave them that. And that was something everyone had been starving for. And she did a good job doing it.
She did.
But that wasn't my point about her Mando writing. It was just how she wrote some of her characters, situations that were just so phony. I thought, I've said this before, I thought she was cheap fan fiction. And to be honest, you don't tell an author that. You don't tell off an author like that. And I know I was rude. I know. If anyone pulls back up, someone said, "Matt, what was your username?" I'm not giving that out.
You can give it out to me. I won't spread it.
No one.
Okay.
Because I had a chip on my shoulder, and we didn't know back then. That was the only thing you used to fight about was, you like this story, you didn't like that story. And it's funny now that you think that's the stuff we used to fight about. And yeah, that was the stuff we used to fight about. And I know I was rude to Karen Travis when I saw her get on. I was like, yeah, well, looky. Why don't you go write your diary and bring out the next Clone Commando series? You have.
I only read like.
So hold on, Ed. Actually, Ed, do you want to talk really fast? Because I wanted to add a point there.
Do it. Go ahead.
I only read one story from Karen Travis, and I don't know any. I haven't read the Commander series, but it was the Boba Fett, A Practical Man. That's a good story.
It's a novella, but
yeah, that ties in all the New Jedi Order scenes.
No, the thing is, what I have a problem with Karen also to this, and I do think there is some blame to the Clone Wars production crew. I'm not going to say it's fully on, fully blame Karen for this, but she just went ape shit about the Mandos and just refused to really write any more about them after.
Well, what had happened is they told her to back off. Filoni came in, really, really screwed with the Mandos bad, in a bad way too, in a bad way. It was so bad that Leland
actually likes the changes.
You like the changes?
I was saying I haven't found anyone that does like the changes.
Well, okay.
No one liked the changes, but the thing was that did you know that they wrote a retcon for that too?
Yes, I'm well aware of all the Clone Wars retcons. Because I don't know if you knew this, Matt, but I don't know if anything's gotten to you or anything. I actually made a Clone Wars timeline to fit shit together because Lucasfilm couldn't be bothered at the time. So I've been working on this for months.
I just want to make this one last statement. Kevin Travis wasn't the only person who stuff got canned. It was a lot of other people, so she shouldn't be the one who always thinks that I'm the only one.
Right.
I mean, eventually these things all get fixed up in the end.
Right.
She didn't give a chance. So there you go.
Yeah. Exactly. No, but I think back. It's like they did retcons and they tied into Death Watch more and more and gave more of a background to why this is like this. But do I fully agree like what they changed, like Mandalore and everything? I don't fully agree with what they've done with TCW and the Legends locations, but I understand why and what hoops they went through and did that through, which was through George and through other people who were running the project.
Well, George had little to nothing to do with the Clone Wars TV show, Dave Filoni's TV show. Dave even says in the behind-the-scenes stuff, Dave Filoni said he'd come in, make a suggestion here and there, and Dave Filoni said there'd be times he wouldn't even listen to George. George never got a writing credit like he did with
no, George has no writing.
And the Ewok movies, he actually directed scenes from the Ewok movies.
Right.
So that was the whole thing about T-Canon. I kind of mocked on because I said, why is it T-Canon? Well, because George approves of it. George approves of it all. Yeah, but George is a little bit more involved, really, because he didn't direct a single episode. He is not given one writer's credit, whereas there's games and there's books that he's done. He's lended some information to, just as much information. Timothy Zahn said he had a 5-minute conversation with the man too, and then Lucas gave him ideas for this and that. Terry Brooks, who wrote episode 1, also got to sit with George. And so George gave him the history of the Sith and how it should go down.
Right.
Yeah, and there was an interview with Tom Veitch as well where he actually talked to George about bringing the Emperor back as a clone and everything.
Yeah,
really
right.
But and here's the thing: is like when Clone Wars was going on, George was busy on other projects as well. There was, what was it? There's King and the Crystal Skull coming out. He was supervising a lot of stuff back then, and even though he doesn't have a writer's credit, you can see in the behind the scenes stuff. He is in the room. He's at these meetings for the episodes. And I believe he does have a say in what went through, and he did act some stuff. I'm not saying that, again, everything should be attributed to Dave. I've met Dave, and he's a good man and very kind. And actually, you know, he's
That's weird. It's
creative.
like my sound messed up. It's like you were talking about Dave Filoni there for a minute. I'm totally kidding with you. I'm totally kidding.
I know.
That much. Go ahead.
No, the thing is, you know, Dave gets a lot of flack in the community, and I understand why he does.
No, I don't know if you know why. The thing is, the man should have just said, "Hey guys, I know nothing about the expanded universe. I just read a Thrawn trilogy when I was younger." If he would have said that, I would have had no problem with him. But when he came in, he pretended that he did know. He got called out for not knowing, and then ever since then, he doesn't want to talk about the expanded universe. He shies away. Actually, in the last season on DVD, George Lucas's daughter turned when they talked to him about how did you come up with Darth Maul's bottom half, and George Lucas's daughter turns to Dave Filoni and goes, "Well, you know where you want to tell him where we got it?" He went, he didn't want to say anything, and she goes, "We got it from the comic books."
Yeah, we got from the Visionaries.
And Filoni didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, he got scared at this point.
Yeah, I think he's scared at this point because, you know, he's tired of being called out on a lot of stuff.
I'm sure he's a nice, friendly guy. Like I said, if I ever saw him, you know, I'd sit down with him, talk with him, because the stuff he wrote on the clones, the episodes that focus on the clones, they were good.
You know, I agree on that. And a lot of people in the community, though, I will say this, a lot of people in the community just give flack with clones because, they're independent. And I'm like, they're not fully independent. They're not like ARC troopers. They don't have truly independent thoughts. They are still people. They aren't droids. Like, it's a very different beast entirely than a droid, and personality wise versus, you know.
I think a lot of the stuff people complaining about comes from the later seasons as well, when they did divert a bit more and contradict a bit more. Like season 6 with the chips in their brain compared to the programming from just
right. I didn't like that. That one is just majorly down on my list.
Yeah, but I think you also, thinking of the Clone Wars 2008, you can't really write it out of the EU because there's also the C canon material that all ties into it as well.
Yeah, so then you got to take that out, and then what else do you have to take out? It's like you could go on and on and on about it.
But if you're going to take those out, then are you going to take out Fate of the Jedi that references back to it, and that's you got the idea for Abeloth? So
yeah, it gets too messy if you try to do that. I know people just say, "Well, I don't like it," and I'm headcanon argument, which I think is dumb, but that's just me.
And I don't know what I was gonna say. Let me drink more.
You were about to recant all the nice things you said about Dave Filoni, I think. I'm totally kidding with you.
You're fine. I can take a joke.
Choose for that.
I do the exact same thing to other people, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
I'm not what you call snowflake. I'm not going to get offended by someone else's opinion. Or
no, it's a joke anyway, so it's good.
Yeah.
Also, thinking of the extra material, they even have just junior novelizations that are direct adaptations of some of the episodes that I see canon.
Right.
Well, do you know why?
Yeah.
George read the comic book and said, "Hey, I want you to do an episode like this." Like that story where Anakin goes onto the planet and there's the queen there and they have a relationship. They somehow, I can't remember exactly, but I remember reading
it was the Zygerrian. It was Slaves of the Republic.
Yeah, Slaves of the Republic. And George loved that story, and so he wanted Dave to do that story.
Yep. And Henry Gilroy and Dave Filoni did that.
That's a huge big bar.
But they changed things up so where it'd be a little bit different. But now it looks awful because it looks like the same two things happened to Anakin on the planet.
Right.
It's like, it reminds me of Die Hard 2 when John McClane goes, "How can the same blank happen to the same guy twice?" That's what Anakin was saying during the Clone Wars. It's like, wait a minute, this is all happening all over again.
It's happening. It's not really happening all over again. well, that rewrites that story, and that just tosses the Slaves of the Republic out.
This makes my mind twist.
It's the same event.
You had canon to write out parts of the EU as well, saying, let's just toss that out.
No, that is a headcanon. They actually,
the T canon would be higher above it, but wherever you want to place it, it's still part of the EU.
right.
Yes, it was.
Right.
The canon came about. However, Dave Filoni managed to wrangle that out of Lucasfilm.
So I guess I should ask this question, Matt. Like, what you're 50-50 on the series?
Yes,
you said. I'm just curious here about like what are the things you like about the series. I'm just kind of thinking.
Well, I mean,
positive.
I did videos on this, so I don't want to get too repetitive about this for people who've seen them. But for people who haven't, anytime, almost every time he focuses on clone troopers, he gets it right. He gets it right. Just about almost every single time. I love those episodes. The things he gets wrong, I'm going to pass on the most ridiculous story plots ever. But the thing he gets wrong are Ahsoka completely. Now, they dropped the Sky Guy thing after what, season 2?
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It was dumb from the beginning, and it put a bad taste in my mouth. Plus, remember the episode where she falls in love with the boy and she's thinking about leaving the Jedi Order and leaving Anakin? Yeah, that happened already. It was called Jedi Apprentice, written by Jude Watson, when Obi-Wan left Qui-Gon because he was in love. I mean, it was like a total ripoff. I know where they got the story, and it was just, I mean, it was almost, beat for beat. And I was like, they don't know, and they didn't know what to do with her in the end. They had no idea. And then you look at Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship. Tartakovsky's Clone Wars really showed them growing together.
Right.
And he did in less time. Dave Filoni has all the time in the world, and he didn't even harp on their friendship. He didn't harp on how they could be building their friendship. No, it's about the adventure. It's about the war. No, it's about them building this bond that we see in episode 3. I've said this before. If you watched everything in chronological order, okay, you watched episode 1, then you watched episode 2, then you watched all of Dave Filoni's Clone Wars. Okay, so when you get to episode 3, you should have a lot of questions. When Obi-Wan goes up against Grievous, this isn't his first time.
No.
He's whooped that dude 3 times already. When Dooku goes up against Anakin and Obi-Wan, and Anakin goes, no, Obi-Wan goes, this time we'll fight together. Anakin should have said, if we're watching in chronological order, what? Are you still talking about the first time? We fought him twice together already. We've been working together. What are you doing? You're such a jackass, Obi-Wan. Time when I went off on my own that you're still harping on that? That's what would have happened if we would have watched the Clone Wars. And that's the thing that bothered me about the Clone Wars. It couldn't even bridge the gap properly between 2 and 3. And that aggravated me because it should have. Tartakovsky's Clone Wars did it perfectly, I thought. Filoni's Clone Wars makes no sense on paper because everything that you see has been done before, and it's not as climatic. And by the way, Dooku's not that big. He got caught by space pirates one episode. Remember that?
Yeah. That was a pretty weak point. I have to agree with that.
I can give you a lot of weak points. But the thing is, stuff like Cad Bane. Cad Bane's a great character. Underutilized. Important utilized. Hondo, the pirate. I like that dude. Yeah. That's a fun character. The thing is, though, utilized in the wrong way. They made it's okay to have, it's okay to have a crazy. Who was the Devorian that went around with in the comic book? Villy, yeah, Villy. I love Villy. I love that character. And so that's what Hondo was a little bit. He was kind of the crazy guy who was born for the money and everything. I like Hondo. They made him childish in a few episodes. I'm like, no. He's not dumb. He's just a little crazy, and he's scheming and conniving. Billy wasn't dumb. He was just scheming and conniving. And that's what they should have kept Hondo on. Like I said, and Cad Bane, anyway, there's just a lot wrong with it. But the thing is, if I harp too much on the wrong, I got to harp on the right, because to be honest, every story that stays on the clones is great stuff.
Right.
What was that clone with the deformity? Clone
99. And I see flack about that in the community.
No, it's a great story. That was
I think it's great, but I see a lot of people
sort of. It almost clashes with the Karen Travis books, because in the Travis books they say that they cull all of the deformed clones and the ones that won't be usable for soldiers.
Exactly, and but you have to think they also had another deformed clone. It was like back in like 2010 or 12. They had Kardak, who was also more of a mutant clone.
Well, here it is. With the Comedians cloning tens or hundreds of thousands of clones, not everything is going to go according to order.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there are going to be breaks in protocol just to fill in gaps. Mistakes will be made, just like in any mass production. And clones
does well.
So I don't have a problem with that. I wouldn't even call it a contradiction to say, oh, it was never done this way. Well, yeah, it was.
I was taught that there was actually something in class recently, the difference between a contradiction and an error. Because a contradiction is just from someone else's point of view, that they may say something, but an error is actually when they say something completely opposite from each other.
Right.
Folks, Professor Johns is in the house. Fooling us. That's good. I like that.
So what I'm going to say for my language now is when I think something really is an error, I'm going to actually say it's an error, not a contradiction, because contradictions can actually not be an issue inside of a story.
Hey, Matt, what do you think of the Jar Jar episodes?
You know what?
I'm not going to talk about. It's almost as bad as when Cad Bane sets up the beauty salon.
I feel
capture 3PO and R2, who are going to get cake ingredients for the Padme's party. You're like, this can't be. Now, if I would have pulled this out of a box of Cracker Jacks, I would have accepted that story. But it was so zany and so cartoony. And why did he do it? So he could program them with stuff. You went through this elaborate beauty salon
to steal 3PO's memories.
Just capture them when they walk out anyway.
And it's like Cad Bane is not this. I mean, they made him like this Rocky Bullwinkle villain who you laugh at. I mean, I was waiting for a boulder to fall on top of him, and Cad Bane go, uh-oh, and maybe open up a little umbrella like the coyote does. They were just, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean by Cad Bane. You're using him wrong.
Yeah.
You want to know an awesome character? Dirge.
Yeah, Dirge is good. Awesome. And I think one of the other things is that if you include the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan has 2 romances going on at the same time.
Huh? Wait a second. Wait, what do you mean?
Doesn't die until later on.
No. No, because as of the New Essential Guide to Chronology, that pushed most of the stuff back. So, it pushes most of the stuff back, which would include the Terutachi stuff.
I was in love with Satine Kurz first. When they go on that joint mission or whatever, and they have that time when they actually fall in love with each other. And we only see him back when he's returning to Mandalore and sees her again.
Right.
So he has sort of 2 things going on at the same time in the past.
Yeah, in the past. I mean, Cal, you've been a teenager before. What the heck?
Yeah, I never had a girlfriend. Wow.
Oh boy. Oh. No, but haven't you 2 girls at once though? No. Ever?
No, I think this is for Callum's late night podcast. I think you're getting this confused. That question's for the late night, it's called the play-up.
I'm the one in high school that someone would flirt with me and I'd be completely oblivious.
Dude, are you serious?
Yeah, that's me.
See,
That's
to be honest, I never had a girlfriend until a few months ago. So actually, almost a year ago. So I never had a girlfriend in high school, even though I damn well tried.
do not try.
No. I'm just trying to think what else.
The other, is there anything else about the Clone Wars you want to talk about while we're on the topic?
I did. I don't know. I'm gonna think here. I'm just seeing like what other topics we have to talk about. Using headcanon. We technically discussed a bit of that, but
back to continuity of RPGs for a minute. I personally put them under S canon because some of them are quite dependent. Like you're saying, you can say your own headcanon thing with, that was me playing that. And you could, as RPGs do, you have freedom of choice to go about it the way you want to. So that's where I left it. Like, S canon I view as the events happened, but the details aren't exactly accurate all the time. So that's where I've chucked them. And it makes sense to me. I don't think. Does anyone have a different point of view on that?
I don't know. It just depends. Call ran though the ones that Wizards of the Coast did. And West End Games. I think any short story that they did and published in their books is C canon.
The short stories I've put all the C canon. I'm thinking about
exactly.
the actual storyline playthrough.
Storyline playthrough. We'll have to talk about that, but we'd probably put that S.
Yeah, that's what I linked to. It's making my timeline.
Because there's no defined group of characters who did this. It's the player character, but it's referenced back to happen, like what Matt said about what Troy Denning did.
Yeah. I think it's similar to like Knights of the Old Republic, the video game. That would be ambiguously canon if you just went off. They didn't give a canon ending in the end. But since they did define which part was canon, then they can say, yeah, this is the storyline for that.
Oh, and Matt, by the way, even though I sound like I love the Clone Wars and think it's the best out there, to me it's the TCW Multimedia Project and the original. They're tied to me.
That's fine. You can absolutely love the Clone Wars. I should mention this. I pick fun. I make fun, but a lot of people love it, and that's fine. That's really fun to me.
And there's a lot of people
that agree upon. I'll tell you that. I just harp on the negative, but there's a lot we could. I mean, even I can give his name. I get Chris Sequel. He does. I don't know if he's still around now, but he likes the new canon stuff. He loves the Clone Wars. I got him to admit that he is 70-30 on it. Once I said, Chris, come on, you cannot tell me you love 100%. He went, okay, maybe 10% I don't like. And I started giving him examples. He went, okay, 30. I was like, all right, I'll keep with 30.
Like definitely, like there are problems with both the multimedia and that TCW, but I love them both because I grew up with both that stuff. And
I totally. It's the reason I like Ewoks, and anyone 10 years older than me hates them.
No, to me, I was fine with Gungans and Ewoks because George included those because it was a comical and it was a kid-friendly element to bring more people in. What?
I think it means the cartoon.
The cartoon. I haven't watched the cartoon yet, but it's on my to-do list.
On YouTube as a foundation, and then I started my own original content out of interest for anyone watching. But I still have to watch them properly because I bought Droids and Ewoks because they get claimed, but they haven't been taken down. So.
Oh, you're playing with fire. One day, Lucasfilm is going to claim those, and your channel will just be.
They've already claimed them. They're just making money off of whoever watches it.
I upload the whole 2003 Clone Wars series on YouTube, and I got 1 million and 2,000 subscribers, and they went for me after that.
Yeah, I tried uploading
I
the Marvel
cheated.
series as well because I know other people have actually uploaded it and it's still up there.
Some
And
guy
they just
took his
took it
video. Some guy took his video down, and then I'm like, okay, I'll re-upload it. And then it lasted for a year, and then they went after it.
I'm very curious, Matt. Like, have you had any like problems with people claiming your videos or whatever? Like,
What do you mean claiming my videos?
well, not claiming,
Copyright
but
claims.
like copyright claims, and you get those often or no?
Probably
No.
because you just talk to the camera.
Right.
About what?
Because I get claims on the music from some of the video games that I'm playing on mine.
Oh.
Yeah, Lucasfilm is MGM, Lucasfilm. They're all pretty protective of.
I don't
shit.
play much music on there. The music I have is my own. You can do reviews of stuff. You can even do clips of stuff if you wanted to.
Mm.
But
The
no,
interesting part is
I've lost
I-
fair use claims to Disney before.
I've disputed every single one with fair use, but then it's not worth trying to take it further. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I
If you
can't
put
take it further.
music from the movies, they get claimed, but I put music from the video games on my intros and stuff, and they don't get claimed.
Yeah, he
So,
uses the Old
However
Republic,
it works.
and I think that's because it's the soundtrack might be owned by BioWare/EA.
Oh, could be. But even like the
Yeah.
older games like KOTOR and Force Unleashed and everything.
Right.
Dun, dun, dun.
But yeah. I think we can go on to the next topic, which I thought we'd talk about is overpowered characters.
Oh, this is gonna be exciting.
Oh yeah.
All right.
When do we begin?
So this, a lot of the time people say characters are overpowered in the expanded universe and they shouldn't be godlike or whatever. Or people think the characters are overpowered and they're actually not if you look at the more canon sources.
Right. I'm just trying to think of overpowered characters because to me, nothing besides Abeloth, but even Abeloth has a reason that she's overpowered.
Yeah.
So I'm drawing a blank.
Here, rapid fire, hit me with them. Abeloth's a personification of the dark side. Yeah, he's got to be powerful. You want to say Luke?
Overpowered?
Well, okay, Starkiller. Starkiller was created for a video game.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Also read the novel.
Yeah, it's the novel
The
version.
novel came out about the video game, but he was developed by a video game that is per George. George had so much involvement, they gave him a writing credit for Force Unleashed.
No,
Something
I
they
was in.
didn't give him for the Clone Wars.
I am so
Yeah.
I am so sick though of people citing Revan as the most powerful character and he can do all these things. It's like it's a video game.
And he got literally taken over by the Emperor anyway.
Yeah, and then I hear these Revan fans, then they complain about the Revan book. It's like, do you really expect him to act exactly like you do in your playthrough of the video game as Revan? Like I honestly think that. But
And
Yeah.
gameplay mechanics like fighting off heaps of dudes in the Force Unleashed and fighting them the exact way that you would in KOTOR and that isn't canon. It's the story that's taken
It's
from
just
it.
a video game.
hey Matt, I don't know if you know this, but I might blow your mind here. The moment you realize Starkiller is only like 16 during the Force Unleashed.
Okay, did they not give his age? Did they give his age?
No, his age is 19 BBY and then minus 2, 16, 17.
And
So-
out of interest, that's also about the same age that Boba Fett conceives a child with.
But-
As well.
Again,
Yeah.
well, again, that's for John's after hours show about how Boba's conceiving children. I must be on the wrong pod. I must be on the podcast.
Yeah, me and Callum have a podcast. We're taking a break, and then
Okay.
when we come back, we're gonna rebrand. And
Does he use his jetpack in any way? Anyway, I don't want to know. The thing is with overpowered characters, if all they're mentioning is video game characters, that is a video
Defeats the
game,
purpose.
and they had to adapt that. Like Kyle Katarn could also be thrown to that category too, because he just keeps beating one Dark Jedi after the next. Yeah, it's a video game. We brought it into the books. So it is what it is. Video game characters are going to have power moves. They're going to be super powerful. They're going to be able to level up and everything. And that's what they did. We were bringing those video characters into the expanded universe. If you want to say Luke was super powered, yeah, he was. But also his weakness was he was so timid and, in a way, just so afraid that he would fall into the dark side that he, Kip Duran said it in New Jedi Order. He said, "You're the one killing us here by your hesitancy to make a move." And it turned out to be true. Because of Luke's hesitance, the Vong got a good stronghold grip into the galaxy and became a bigger threat than if Luke would just thrown the Jedi at him immediately at the beginning. So Luke is very flawed as a character. I mean, you could go into a lot of, I wouldn't say flawed, but he does have a weakness. You know, his weakness is his heart. He does not want to follow the dark side. He's got this inside fear. The same thing that I believe they were building inside of Anakin Solo before he died off. Because remember, Anakin is terrified that he's going to follow in the legacy of his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker. He feels that way. Going to Emperor's End, when the recloned Emperor is trying to get into his body, he can still feel, remember, that. Even though he's a kid, he remembers that, and that scares him. So he's he's a very powerful Jedi, but he's hesitant to use his powers. Same thing as Luke is. Now, besides those people, I don't know who else you can talk about. Nomi Sunrider, Ulic Qel-Droma, Exar Kun, these powerful ancient Sith. Well, yeah, they were big, but they were defeated. They weren't unstoppable.
Yeah. And Valkorion's pretty.
Well, video game character, but at the same time,
again, video game characters. It's just unfair because that's the whole point of video game characters.
To me, it makes sense with Fitchiat and Valkorion anyway, because he used the ritual to suck the force out of the planet and into himself.
Yeah.
That seems like an after-hours discussion too. Would you just?
What about someone saying the Vong was OP?
What?
The Yuuzhan Vong. I remember
the Vong was overpowered.
Yeah.
No, the Force. They could go toe to toe with the Jedi. That was not overpowered.
I guess
equal force.
The reason they were so good is because they didn't care about their own lives. They were zealots. And then they didn't have the Force, which made them hard for the Jedi to defend against. And they were trained warriors. There was nothing overpowered about them. In fact, they could easily have been wiped out by that spore as well that choked their armor. Or they eventually, of course, found peace. But the thing is, though, they weren't unstoppable. That they were killing Vong since the first novel.
Mm.
Some are going to be bigger than the others. Yeah, some are going to appear more unstoppable. You look at Dirge. I thought Dirge was a great character, but geez, you can't kill this dude. Well, unless you look at the comic books, they did a great job there. But Dirge was just someone that didn't have the Force that could go toe to toe with the Jedi. That's what they wanted. They wanted a character, and that's the trick. Who do you put against a Jedi besides a Dark Jedi? That's been done a million times.
And the Mandalorians.
And the Mandalorians, of course. So you want to get different ideas. So Dirge was invented. Pretty powerful character, but met his end. The Vong are created. Very powerful characters. Besides that, what's been going on? The Ysalamari, the little worms that create the Force bubble, you saw Brackus use those to go toe-to-toe, try to even the playing field against Luke. Of course, Brackus was a Dark Knight Jedi. But the thing is, though, you get my point. They're coming up with different ideas of ways to, battle Jedi, and I can applaud them for that. The Voxen, of course, Jedi killers, that kind of stuff. There's some interesting ideas that the expanding universe gives us, but no one is supremely powerful over. I mean, Yoda. You want to talk about overpowered characters? Yoda. You have them in Mace Windu, but they're all going to eventually meet their end.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's anyone that's just too overpowered. And again, I would argue that video games just don't count because that's the way video game characters were designed.
And then you get a novelization of the video game, like The Force Unleashed, and it grounds it and it makes them less overpowered.
I mean, if you think about Palpatine can become overpowered at some points, but at the same time, the movies kind of level him out. But Dark Empire puts him kind of above.
Well, into Callum's theory, what he was talking about, if they go into the books, it kind of grounds that character, makes him a little less powerful. I mean, Starkiller still crashes a Star Destroyer. So he has some superpower.
Actually, he doesn't crash it. He just essentially just stops.
He brings it to the ground.
Yeah.
He guides it a bit more because it was already falling because of gravity.
But the thing is though that the books are canon. The video games are not.
Right.
And the elements of the video games, it's a core story. Like you have a linear story with the Dark Forces game and Jedi Knight games. They're canon where it's a canon choices.
Did y'all know Edward had a magic ring? It's like the one ring when he fits it on his ring, he turns invisible. It's incredible. I didn't even see him slip it on either.
Oh yeah, he completely missed me.
He's waiting for that After Hours podcast with you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's waiting.
Have you ever noticed, Matt? I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you look at Empire's End, of course I'm talking about the comic book, not the new Chuck Wendig piece of.
I don't know any of the titles to the new books anyway, but go ahead.
So Palpatine actually has a robe very similar to what he has at the end of episode 3. So he has like a clasp with the double kind of like shoulder cape type thing with the cloak.
Okay.
It's really weird how that's a thing. Like episode 3, either the concept artist looked at that and was like, actually, I'm going to just pull it up. Hold on.
Okay.
Just go grab it.
A point I want to add on to talking about how Luke becomes really powerful is that it's like it's 5-6 years before he even starts building the new Jedi Order as well. So, and all that time he's training and looking for more knowledge and everything, so it makes sense that he's growing more powerful during that time.
Yeah, and he's always learning new ways, and this was the key. Even when he in Dark Empire, he's learning from the Genocide. I don't remember. I don't know exactly how you pronounce their name.
Jasana.
Okay, Jasane.
Let me see. Right here, the one like when he's battling Yoda in the Senate chamber.
Okay.
He's got the dual he's got a cloak on that. I just found that very interesting when I read that. It's like
it's a nice connection.
It is, and I'm like, that's weird that
it connects everything together.
And the thing is, there are way more connections in the expanding universe than even I know.
I don't think anyone can keep a list.
Talking to the authors. You talk to the authors. Like I talk to Ryder Wenham from time to time, and whenever I review one of his books or short stories or comic books, I talk to him about it, and he tells me. So if you recall, in the second issue, we actually did this. I said that because Wedge has to say that because it makes more sense. Because if you look at the X-Wing books, he actually lived that. So that's why he says that comment. I'm like, I didn't even make that connection, But there's so much diligence and hard work that goes into each one of these stories, just about that you would just be overwhelmed with the amount of detail and dedication that they take to make sure this wasn't a burden for anyone to tie in the other stuff. It was a challenge, and they wanted to accept it, and they wanted because they knew that they wrote. And see, that's the beautiful thing about the expanding universe. They wrote this for the geeks, for the people who knew we were going to comb over it with a fine-tooth comb. They got the fans. They understood how the fans were. That's why John Whitman takes Galaxy of Fear, a children's book, and chalks it full of expanded universe material because he knew that some grown man was going to read it. No, that's why when they got the Star Wars Adventures books that came out for kids, that's why Dave Wolverton and Ryder Wenham and Oh, the other girl didn't do as much.
I know who you're talking about.
Not Nancy Richardson. She did Junior J Nice. Anyway, they knew that people like me were going to buy the kid package, throw away everything in that package, save the book. I did that. And actually, when they started repeating episode 1, this is even more shameful. I even called Scholastic pretending to be a dad. I had no kids. I had
now you can do that. Now you can do that, and it'll be true.
I was like, yeah, but back then I was like, my kids are really upset that y'all aren't putting in new books. Are y'all going to put in some new books? They said, well, sir, I think that's it. We're just going to be repeating the same ones because a few people haven't been with us it's been it's been a year and a half now. I was like, oh, okay, well, we'd like to cancel then because they have this other stuff. Yeah, I didn't have any kids. I had no one.
You're thinking of
for me.
If
I would
that person is watching
nice at Walmart and be like, it's for my kid. I was kind of embarrassed because they're looking at me like, you.
It'd be funny.
I go to half price books. Like I'm a 21-year-old. I go to half price books. I just put on the table like something from the children's section. I'm like, they don't even look at me like that. I'm just like, I have no shame. It's like, just bring it up.
Also, because you're not wearing pants when you purchase it, and that it could be that they're more shocked by that, and they don't even look at the book. That's an idea, though. But save that for the after-hour podcast again, please, guys.
By the way, you were thinking of Jude Watson.
No, it wasn't Jude. Hold on.
Jude.
I am wearing pants.
We hope.
Dave Wolverton, Ryder Wenham, and maybe there wasn't a third one.
I know Jude Watson did a lot of the younger.
Well, these were the Star Wars the mail-in ones.
Mail-in ones. Okay, so like the episode 1 and episode 2 adventures. I actually have an episode 2 one. The Jango Fett and the Razor Eaters.
So Fun Adventures are interesting because near the end, leading into the Phantom Menace, they give the only version of the story of how Jar Jar was exiled.
Oh yeah, no, and I love that. I love that they did stuff like that. And my bad, it's just Ryder and Wolverton who teamed up and wrote all those. I thought there was a girl that wrote a few. I was wrong.
Look at his face.
Be careful. You don't. Be careful. You don't want the Star Wars fans getting a hold of a woman didn't write a book.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was a girl that had written one, and I thought she didn't make connections, but I must have been mistaken. No, it was just Ryder Wenham and Dave Wolverton who wrote them, and they did a fantastic job. But of course, they knew that someone like me, a grown man, is going to be reading these books. They put that stuff in there.
Right.
Jude Watson probably put together one of the best. Actually, you want to talk about the best, young adult books ever.
Which is the Jedi Apprentice and Jedi Quest books, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, those were so good. So good.
I have 2 of the Apprentice books. I read some when I was in elementary school, but because that was the time when they were coming out. So I read a few of those, but nothing too major.
I love those books.
They're great books.
Oh, speaking of which, you might remember this, Matt. Escape from Dagu.
Yeah.
So I was very curious about this, and I was curious about this. So I was like, Lucasfilm has to have a manuscript somewhere. This
what it is Del Rey probably has it, but they probably don't anymore. Bill Dietz, or William C. Dietz, as y'all know him, I talked to him, and he has it. He's not gonna lie, but he has it, but he's not giving it out because he got paid in full for that book, and so technically it's not his to give out. Now, I've discussed this with him about my contract with Sequart, said that if they didn't print the book, when I did the well, I'm looking at my bookshelf. I don't see my own book on there. That's a shame.
You wrote a book?
Civilized Age.
You did that?
Say what? I wrote one of the essays in it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But when I did that, I signed a contract, and in 3 years, if they hadn't printed the book, then I could release my story. I got paid for it, but that $100 is gone. And but the thing is, though, after 3 years, I could have released it. And I said, I think you probably have the same contract because I think these are the standard contracts. And I got another editor to talk to him, but Bill is very polite. He's very nice. And he said, thanks, but no thanks. He really doesn't feel comfortable releasing it. And I'm not going to force him. And it's up to Del Rey. Del Rey has no interest in releasing this.
No, and they should. They honestly should.
I think so. But unless someone can go into Del Rey, go through the archives, print a copy, and leak it, Del Rey's not going to care, to be honest.
That or get on William C. Dietz's computer, find the file, copy it.
Don't break into that man's house.
No, I'm not. No, that or if he has a written version, just steal it from his library, make photocopies, and then just
correct.
Eventually, we're going to get a copy of that.
No, me and Cal made a joke. We're going to sneak into Skywalker Ranch and just steal that. No,
it's going to be like Fanboys 2.0.
Yeah. So actually, I tweeted the only reliable person I can actually rely on answering Star Wars tweets anymore, and that is Matt Martin. So I tweeted him and I asked him.
Oh, Matt then.
Yeah, Matt Martin. Let me see.
He's a new story group guy.
Yep.
Yeah, he came in later into Lucasfilm, so he doesn't know as much about the older stuff, but he still gives some interesting answers to some things.
I said to him this. I sent him a tweet. His handle's @missingwords. I said, so I'm curious about something. I know it's probably before your time, but what stage of completion or whatever happened to the planned novel Escape from Dagu? It's something that has fascinated me. Like, was a rough draft ever completed? And Matt said, haven't heard that name in a while. I'm not sure, though, before my time here. Like, do you know someone who might? And he says, maybe Holocron Keeper. And then Leland answered the question. He says, it was one of those rare canceled titles that goes as far as having cover art and a spot on the Clone Wars timeline, which I don't think would have happened if we didn't at least have a draft. Yeah. So he hinted he had a draft. So
they had the thing completed.
Yeah, I'm thinking that
they don't want to be hounded for it. No one wants to be hounded for it. Like if you were to ask William C. Dietz, he'd say, "I don't have it."
But he does have it.
I mean, yeah, but the thing is, though, he's not going to get rid of it. And I don't want to harass the guy.
No, never. I don't want to harass him either.
I don't think we should.
No.
But I mean, the thing is, I'd love to read it. Will I ever? I don't know. Never say never, because we got to read what was it? Heart of the Jedi.
I have a good feeling too.
Exactly. And there was Skywalkers as well, but that was released through hyperspace.
Skywalkers and Joe's book that's coming out.
Supernatural Encounters.
Supernatural Encounters.
Yeah, that came out not too long ago, right? Or no, wait, are they having a print run of it? I thought I heard
doing a print run. Yeah.
How much are they? Do you know pricing on that?
It was during the backing campaign. I don't think he's selling them. Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to print them out.
You mean the comics?
No. Supernatural Encounters was.
It was the story that it was going to be a 6 or 7 part story. I can't remember, that Joe was working on for StarWars.com when the buyout happened, and then everything got put on hold. He still had it. I have. I'll be honest, since we're being honest, I have a copy, but the thing is, it's going to change from the copy I have, because as Joe went back into it, he just has more to talk about. And has more to expand. Now, I equivalent it to the Silmarillion. If anyone's familiar with Tolkien,
I am.
it's a report on the state of the galaxy, the weird, the odd, all the West End game stuff, and he makes tons of tie-ins.
It'd be interesting. Is he gonna go into the Mortis stuff, or
he's gonna go into everything?
Okay.
It seems, and a little bit more. I helped out when I read it. I offered a few critiques, very few. One was a character that I thought he was written out of character. So we talked about that, and Joe is really open to, he wants to hear my points on this and that. And same thing with the timeline. I'll ask him questions about his timeline. Sometimes his time, and it's not his fault. What Joe's done on StarWarsTimeline.net is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And the way he feels is right as well. So,
but as I'm reading it and I'm finding stuff, I'll send him questions. I said, can you tell me why you put this here? Because I don't have it there. I have it here. And he'll usually change it, or he'll tell me why, and then I'll change mine.
I've noticed a few errors in his, and I'm like, okay, well, this.
You can always reach out to him and inquire, but you need to talk about why.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm not going to
explain the. He's fine changing it, because if you think about it, guys, one man. That's why my tagline is "as best I know how," because one man cannot go through the entire expanded universe in chronological order. It's just not going to happen.
This person, wherever he is on your screen, this man wants to, and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be hard for you. It's something. Anyway, his short story is something to add to this. Big old binder.
What's that binder? What's in the binder?
It's a bunch of short stories that I have formatted, and a few like lost comics, like what was it? Prelude to Rebellion #0's in there, and then the one comics, the Reversal of Fortune comics I have in there.
Cool.
Cool. I'm gonna need more. I'm gonna need more binders. That only goes up to currently right now I only got to right before episode 1. So that thing is I'm gonna need probably like 5 more.
Yeah, I'm currently the only owner of the Tales from the Galaxy series, books 1, 2, and 3.
Did somebody do a special printing of those?
They're all in hardback, and they were edited by.
Can you find me? Can you somehow get me a copy from my collection? I need something. I need.
These are just great books, man. I mean, this Matt Wilkins guy is just he just keeps delivering good stuff for everyone.
Oh, that's a nice couple.
Back in the day, I would print these out in hardback at a self-printing place for my own good. A buddy of mine helped me out with the really nice covers. And I have a 4th one that someone reminded me about, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in a book for myself as well, because I kept it open because back then I was still the Old Republic site was still bringing out short stories.
Yeah, that's chock full of them. What I have.
And so that's what one of my books has, and the other book has the overflow from that, and has a few other things too. Now I need to go through and put an index on everything. But other than that, those are what those stories are. Same thing. Some exclusive ebooks that never got printed.
I hate that. Like
Target exclusives, Outfoxed, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I always wanted it in print, so I just started making my own, put them in print. And the last one I have is basically it has enough pages to have its own book. I just am holding out hope that I'll one day add something to it. I haven't added anything to it since 2016. No, 2017 was the last time I added something to it. So I should go ahead. 2018, I added nothing to it. This year, I haven't added anything. So I may as well. But anyway, I fear we've gone into the weeds with our conversation. I'm sorry, Callum.
Really fast, Callum. Before we get back on, I was gonna say I talked to who does it? Titan, that does Star Wars Insider now. I asked them because they started reprinting Best of Star Wars Insider. So I asked them when I was at Celebration, this year if there was a chance that they could reprint their short stories they put in the previous issues. And they were like, yeah, we can't reprint those because of author stuff and it's like
there's probably contractually they would have to repay those authors again to reprint their stories.
Right.
Probably. And they'd have to pay royalties for every book sold and whatnot with the author's characters. Even if they reuse the characters, they'd have to pay the authors.
But you'd think that the authors, they'd just sell the stories to Lucasfilm and then they would just have those as their they'd buy out the stories. And it's free to reprint for them.
That's if the authors let them buy it.
Okay, where are we at?
I thought it'd be interesting to go over what each of us thinks of how we see the deaths of the big three, like what sorts of elements you want to see if it was ever written, or what you think to them in between Crucible and comics.
Okay, so why don't we go Han, Leia, and Luke, maybe?
Yeah, the big three is Han, Leia, and Luke.
See, it's so hard because it's hard to kill off a character. To me, it's like if anyone was to kill off these characters, it would have to be George. Like, and I'm not even like joking here, but he's the one who created these characters, and it would be. I'd feel remiss. Like, this is another reason why I'm not liking the new canon, is because they've bastardized the characters at this point. And
they've gone in a different direction than George would.
I think, then George probably would have. So if I ever saw anything, either George, like I'd want George's direct involvement in creating a novel for it. But I'm just thinking with Luke, how would you do that? It'd be interesting. I feel like this would be very interesting. I haven't read the novel, so you guys can give opinions on Fate of the Jedi. I think Matt's the only one here who's probably read them. Ed, have you read Fate of the Jedi?
I still have to get to them.
No. I think it would be interesting to see a vulnerable Luke, like a really old Luke, but have under either the one Sith, like a Shard Het / Darth Krayt, or one of his beings, have to do that and pave the way to what they'd eventually get to. So by eliminating Luke, they've eliminated an obstacle in their path. I think that would be an interesting one, would be Darth Krayt versus Luke. Kind of eliminating, take him out of the path to legacy.
Oh yeah, they'd at least die of old age by the Legacy comics.
Right. But we know that Darth Krayt can be active between the eras. So Han, I don't know what I'd do with Han. It was interesting. What was it? It was in Tales of the Bounty Hunters. It was the Boba Fett one. Last Man Standing, where it was left ambiguous.
Yeah.
Boba Fett and Han. I honestly don't know their relationship after that. So I don't know. I'd honestly want to just see a peaceful life for Han and Leia, just because those two have went through so much. Not saying Luke hasn't, but they've lost 2 kids.
I think it would be a nice contrast to his personality when he was younger as well. Right. To die peacefully.
Right. Matt, what do you think?
In a nutshell, I think this is what happens. I think Luke dies saving the Jedi Order, giving those last-minute instructions. but saving them from something really bad, meaning something like Abeloth. Han, if he were to pass away, he'd have to go down in a blaze of glory in the Falcon. That's the only way Han dies, is when the Millennium Falcon dies, because no one else should fly it after he's dead.
Yeah, I think that'd be great too.
And Leia should be the one that's left alive the longest, and she lives to a ripe old age and eventually becomes one with the Force, but lifts the Jedi Order to places higher than Luke did, in a way. Like, she even transcends her brother in some ways. Maybe she's not as powerful that way, but in her wisdom of her words, that's where because she's always good at being a leader. She's been in the Senate for as long as she can remember. She's been in politics, but now she's using that knowledge, that expertise, I should say, for good. So she lives till she's well into her 90s, until she finally passes away. I mean, she's seen Ben's kids, Jaina's grandkids, and maybe even some baby great-grandchildren before she passes away. So a lot of people still remember her. Like, maybe even Cade Skywalker's father, Cole, remembers an old Leia.
Because
that'd be a great. Hold on. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
They've never stated like how many generations it's been.
That may be a little bit too far out, but
it's been 300 years. But then again, Vima,
Cole Skywalker's father, did know Leia. You know, I would imagine.
Yeah, it would be interesting because of Vima, though, because maybe having another Leia like that parallel to
and you know, special thing with Vima. But anyway.
And humans live longer in the Star Wars universe anyway, especially with the technology, because there's Epi Belden in the Triss of Bakura that is 138.
Of course. And that's, so, I mean, and if you have space in you too, like Planet Twilight told us, you can live for a long time too.
So, really fast, Ed, what do you think?
Well, I guess for Han, he's going to do one last commitment. Everyone's going to tell him don't do it, and he says, he said that Chewie would have done the same thing, and then he just goes out with that ship, and that was it.
So you're agreeing with Matt?
Yeah, except I think it should be like a emotional what he mentions Chewie. Chewie would have done the same thing.
So like he says, you know, you're gonna die, and he just looks at him as the music plays. He goes, "I know."
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a good one.
I know.
I think for Luke and Leia, I think they should just live out the rest of their lives in retirement and pass on to the new generation. Find somewhere peaceful to rest. Kind of like how the whole story about when Moses he brought the Hebrews to eat to the promised land, but he wasn't allowed to go in there, so he just walked away. Something like that.
Nice.
So, I'm just thinking. Vima just kind of disappeared in the EU. She, after, what was it, New Jedi? No, she was mentioned. Yeah, she was for the longest time. She's just been.
Empire's End was the last time we saw her.
No. Last time we saw her was Crimson Empire 3.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
But did that happen at the same time as Dark Empire?
Crimson Empire 3 takes place 13 ABY, which is, I believe, 3 years. I could be wrong. 3 years after, 2 or 3 years after the Jedi Academy trilogy, which Jedi Academy takes place a year after the thing. So it's weird that she's never mentioned really again. And that, yeah. Actually, no, wait. She was mentioned in Lone Wolf, which was the novella that came with Skywalkers. A novella besides a novella. So, I don't know. It's just weird that she just kind of disappears off the face of the map when she was, pretty critical in the Dark Empire storyline.
Yeah, definitely. That's different authors, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh. So
Oh no, Matt.
Yeah, I think that is my cue, gentlemen.
All right.
I think I'll have to exit the conversation, but thanks for having me.
I mean, of course.
Thanks for coming.
When me and Cal reboot our podcast, we want to have you on at some point. So
we're still working out exactly if we want to reboot it or if we just want to do discussions like this as well. So
this is fine.
Which is good.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
See you, man.
Now you got return to your fatherly duty, sir.
Will do. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep. You too. Have a good night.
This is awkward.
No, Matt's a good guy. I like Matt.
I really like what Matt said about Han going down with his ship. I think that's something that'll be quite meaningful for that. For him to go down there. And tie in the idea of something with Chewie doing the same thing and is inspired by Chewie and going back and how long he spent with Chewie as well.
Yeah.
I'm coming.
Nostalgia factor as well.
Hold on. I'm coming, buddy.
I'm coming, buddy.
I'm coming, buddy.
I'm coming, buddy.
I'm just a grumpy old Harrison Ford. Mark Hamill does a really good grumpy Harrison Ford.
Yeah. Of course, he's really good at voices. For Luke, I think I like the idea of him going out similar to Yoda. In a way, like his last words are passing on the reins to the next generation. And I'm not sure exactly how it would come about that he's doing that, because he could be mortally wounded and then he's on his deathbed and he's doing that, or he could be...
Again, I feel like it'd just be an interesting way for the one Sith to just carve out dominance. Like, I like the idea that it was a plan, like kind of like the grand plan, but it was less elaborate. And they did do this, I believe, taking out political opponents and just destabilizing the galaxy. That could be one of the things that they could have done. One of the earliest things is like, we need to eliminate the most powerful Jedi, their source of hope, their source of everything. We need to eliminate him first. And Creighton knows he's alive, and Creighton knows his power. And that would just be very interesting.
It'd be a good fight.
It would be. And
I could see it as maybe a mixture of both, as he gets mortally wounded by Creighton, but then he has enough time afterwards to be on and pass on a bit like Yoda.
Right.
Saying it's time now for me to go into sleep, and the next Grand Master of the Jedi Order will you be, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I like the idea of Leia being old age and growing in her wisdom.
Right. You forgot about Lando. Like, how could you forget about Lando there?
Oh, we're talking about the big three more than the other characters. Because you can talk about the deaths of all the characters if you want. I do think, like, going back to Han, that it will be connected to AG-37 in some way, because in the Legacy comics, AG-37 said he made a promise to a Solo to look after the descendants, and so I think that's actually connected to
that would be interesting. And IG Assassins, wait, hold on.
IG-37, it looks quite similar to IG-88, but different.
Yeah, hold on. Near the ends. At some point prior to 25, that would be interesting. I haven't read Legacy Volume 2.
Oh, yeah. Those are the ones I have read. I actually haven't read the Cade Skywalker run yet. So
I got a question.
Yeah, shoot.
What do you think Ben will get with?
That Sith girl. I mean,
you sure about that?
Pretty sure. Like, I know that they have a Rocky, kind of like type thing, but I feel like that's, she was leaning more towards that than how she grew up. I think at the in Crucible, I think she was in Crucible. Vestra.
Sarah.
Yep. So I haven't read Fate of the Jedi, but
And I haven't read the story yet to say for sure about that, but another possibility is someone else comes in afterwards.
Yeah, but I don't know. It says she was part of the New Jedi Order and Galactic Syndicated. I don't know. I believe that's I don't know. It could be like a. I just feel like that's probably where they were going to go with the character.
That makes sense to me. But
Are you still sure?
Possible.
Wait, what?
Are you still sure?
We can't be sure unless the story is actually written and officially authorized.
Right.
Don't worry, I got your back. I'll write it for you.
But no.
Okay, take it to Lucasfilm and get it officially authorized.
No, but the thing is that she was. The thing is, Vestara. That's how you pronounce it. Vestara. The thing was, it was after Fate of the Jedi. She didn't die, and she was in Crucible, which was the next big novel to feature the main characters. So that's the thing. It's like that hints that she plays a bigger part later on.
Yeah.
And that they probably had a plan for it, and that was already with Ben. It says the two may have reconciled at some point because it's known that Ben at least had 3 descendants. That's at least what Wikipedia is saying. That's what I was going to discuss with Matt, was like the reliability of Wikipedia.
Yeah, we didn't end up getting to that topic because
it's fine.
So maybe
put a pin in that.
Yeah, maybe another time.
I
think that Ben would have been named the Grand Master of the New Jedi Order, though, eventually.
Maybe not
immediately afterwards, but later on.
See, maybe later on. I feel like the title would go to Jaina, and then it might go to Ben.
Jaina had a role as sort of the Jedi, and I think she would have been focused more on training the Imperial Knights as well.
Right. But, yeah, I mean, that's highly possible. But at the same time, her loyalty could be divided. You just never know.
But there'd definitely be a story about her loyalty being divided between the Fel Empire and the Jedi Order.
Yeah, and I think that's what sort of the Jedi was going to go into, was the balancing the marriage and that. And I really wish we saw Sword of the Jedi, because I'm very curious on how they were going to go with that.
I wonder if she will give up being a Jedi. That's the question.
I feel like she might, because her kids, though, I guess because her kids has force-sensitive training, you'd expect that she's the one who probably started the Imperial Knights, either probably getting disenfranchised with the Order.
Yeah, most likely. And Marizia Fel would be her descendant, and she's in charge of the Fel Empire at the time of the Legacy comics. So
exactly. So you'd think that line would go there, and we know that Jason's line most likely continues with what was her name? And Alana. Yeah.
And then they end up separated because, of course, stuff.
Are you sure though?
When Skywalker.
No, we're not sure, because it just wasn't. It was going to be hard.
Well, we see in the Legacy comics that Aeneas Solo doesn't really know Marizia Fel until they meet in the comics there. So they don't have a close relationship between the bloodlines there.
Right. No, it's still a good 100 years off, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be
stuff
hard.
happened in between to separate the different bloodlines a bit more, because they usually hang out together and all that and know each other during the material we have before Crucible.
I just wish they released Sword of the Jedi. Someone needs. Wait, we can't even talk to Christine Golden, I don't think, because she's probably under contract still by.
Yeah, and the annoying thing with that as well is that they had stuff virtually finished, and it's all across the board. Souls 1313, was pretty much done, we would have had
That would have been an easy paycheck.
easy paycheck. They could have released that. Even if they said this is new canon now, it still could have released it. Sword of the Jedi would have pretty much been. They would have a draft at least, and they would have been.
It's supposed to be a trilogy, so they might have one book before Christie was probably allocated to do Dark Disciple.
Mm.
So,
but yeah, continue the expanded universe, please, Lucasfilm. Even though we can arguably say that some things may be handled better in the EU under different management, I think.
If anything, I don't know why it's like. I don't know why we do this. Why we are saying like Lucasfilm do it. Like Del Rey's the one who publishes the books. Like
yeah, we do.
I feel like if Del Rey went to Lucasfilm and was like, there's a massive outcry and we're just getting a flood of requests and emails. Can we just please start writing these books again? Because this is what our fan base wants, and we know we can sell these.
Guys, I gotta tell you something that really pissed me off. There was this list that was posted on StarWars.com about top 13 Star Wars novels, and guess what? One single EU novel was up there.
Of course not.
Not one single EU novel was up there.
I saw that, and yeah, I know.
Pretty sure they're paid to just put all the new canon ones on there, and they don't actually read the EU stuff.
They don't even look at the data. They don't even look at what fans think. It's stupid. It's
Evan's face right now.
What's that?
Like Evan's face right now.
Oh.
What's wrong with it?
It's stupid.
I don't see anything wrong with my face.
That's so stupid. That's so stupid, man. Oh, man.
I think we can leave that off here. That was a great discussion. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for coming and joining in. And thank you again to Matt for devoting a couple of hours of his time to be able to come in.
Link in the description below to Cal's video, or he'll pop something up, annotations with my channel link.
I'll put appropriate links in the description below. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Over. Say you, Ed.
Adios, muchacha.